He it is who has set free the two seas meeting together. There is a barrier between them, they do not transgress. Now this is a statement which completely agrees with modern science. Scientists have only recently discovered that there are barriers inside the ocean, between the seas. And I give an example between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. So anyways, we see that this statement of the Quran agrees with modern science. Now, I was looking and I saw that there tend to have been a lot of useless debate in people who are trying to define what type of barrier is being used. What type of barrier is the Quran referring to? Because it cannot refute the idea that the Quran clearly states that there is a barrier between the seas, so they started trying to make a controversy out of what type of barrier. Well, anyways, I can kind of settle the debate tonight by saying that the Quran doesn't speak anything as far as what type of barrier is being used. Because, you know, there are many different types of barriers. There's multi-layered barriers. There's radiating barriers. Basically, a barrier impedes movement of an object or a substance, or something that blocks the passage of a certain substance. Different types of barriers perform different functions. Some act like an iron curtain, which completely blocks off two substances, while some barriers do the same task of blocking two substances, but they do it in a more subtle fashion by kind of slowly bringing them to a halt. So anyways, my point is the Quran does not speak about what type of barrier, and there's really no point in trying to guess and trying to make a controversy out of that. Anyways, let me move on to the next piece of evidence. Proof or evidence number 4. We talked about barriers between the two different seas, which differed in temperature, salinity, density, etc. But science today has also told us that there is a barrier between fresh and salt water. In fact, this barrier, which the scientists talk about, they call it the zone of partition. And so basically, on one side of the zone of partition, you got salty water, and on the other part of the partition, you have fresh water. And this has been also clearly, explicitly stated in the Quran. Let's look at chapter 25, verse 53. It is he who has let free the two bodies of flowing water, one palatable and sweet, referring to fresh water, and the other salt and bitter. Now here is the important point I'd like everyone to take heed to. Yet he has made a barrier between them, a partition that is forbidden to be passed. Now again, many of the antagonists and atheists cannot refute the fact that the Quran is clearly talking about a barrier between fresh and salt water. That's unmistakable, and that completely agrees with modern science. But again, they try to make a controversy out of, well, what type of barrier is the Quran talking about? Which is really a red herring. But again, this partition that is forbidden to be passed, that is something which is vague and ambiguous. That doesn't still tell us what type of barrier, whether it's a radiating barrier or etc. Anyways, so I just wanted to make that one point. Let me refer back to Aristotle again. Aristotle did research on oceanography in his books, in addition to bee study. And he tried to explain this phenomenon of fresh water and salt water. He had no idea that there was an actual physical barrier between them. This is what Aristotle thought. He says the same thing happens in animal bodies. Here too, the food when it enters the body is sweet, yet the residuum and the dregs of liquid food are found to be bitter and salt. So basically what Aristotle is saying is like when you eat a Twinkie, it tastes nice. Yeah, it's great. But now if you taste your own poop or your own feces, it's very bitter and salty. Now, this is what I call a very dedicated scientist, who tastes his own feces. You have to give credit to the man. Anyways, so Aristotle continues. This is because the sweet and the drinkable part of it has been drawn away, and the natural animal heat has passed into the fresh and